no clear instructions, so yeah, we're basically telling that this is for that, and yeah, keep a log, and we're hopeful that the one thing will be fine, but yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Well, it was in one of the notes that came through about what family meant. Um, yeah, I think a guardian looking after someone is fine. Yeah, but the question is whether she needs to come in. So, yeah, I think that's right. That's fine. They just each come in separately. Okay. All right. All right. I'm just running out of time. Thanks. So fucking confused. Where's my Zoom meeting? Stop sharing. Escape. No, stop bothering me.
Hi, Bradley.
Hey Jack, how you doing?
Oh my God, what a day. What a
Yeah,
day.
I know. Yeah. Melissa asked me on a scale of 1 to 10 how busy I've been. I said 11.
Yeah, I've had,
I started
very,
at 7 and I don't think I've stopped yet. I had about a 5 minute lunch, and just been crazy.
I think most of my week is already booked up with buyer apartments and got 2 listings today. So, yeah, it's good.
Good to hear.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
How are you, Bradley?
Good, Harpreet, and yourself.
Good, thank you.
I'll just give it another minute or two. There's 36 online, but there's about 47 in the course, and 4 or 5 aren't going to do it live today. They're just going to do it by recording. So let's just give it a couple minutes and we'll get the last few, I think. I hope you have a clever use of your back screen there, Jack, and you're not actually standing in the street.
I actually missed the place,
Yeah. Okay, everybody, we might get started. I've muted all your mics, and then when you want to talk, you just need to unmute yourself at the appropriate time. There were 36, now there's 35. Somebody didn't like the course already. I think you all know who I am, but it's Bradley Brown here. If at any time my sound goes away or you can't hear the video or something, please make sure you unmute and tell me, otherwise I won't know. I developed this course and I've run it numerous times. This is the first time online, and this is actually the first course I've ever conducted right now using Zoom. So hopefully I'll get it all right, but might be a little bit of a learning curve today. What makes this course interesting is a lot of good content, but audience participation, you guys speaking up, contributing, saying things, being part of it all. If it's just me talking all the time, it's not much fun. So when you have opportunities to participate, when I ask you for input, please, by all means, do so. If you don't, then, it's a little bit flat. I try to make it as interesting as possible. Obviously, on the screen, it's not as interactive as if we're all physically in the same room, but that's life under the current situation. We're going to traverse through a whole lot of topics over the next many sessions, mostly all around the concept of leadership. Leadership can be a bit broad. Leadership is about being good in management. It's about communication. It's about understanding people. It's about understanding what leaders do. It's about being a good speaker, all sorts of things. So we're going to try to cover all those bases through all of these various sessions. Got to figure out next time how to not have a waiting room. All these people keep making me tick on it. One of the things that I always say, and it sort of gets it started for me, is this: if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And you have to want to do things different. You have to want to grow in order to grow. I can share a lot of wisdom with you, which I assure you I have and is in this course. But if you don't really want to embrace it, if you don't want to take it up and write notes and write activities and write some goals and things as we progress, then you sort of had a lot of useful information, but it doesn't ultimately mean a lot when it's all said and done. So think about that the more you put in, the more you get out of it. I was listening, I'm a big basketball man, and my Lakers have made the championship for the first time in 10 years, and we're playing either Miami or Boston. And don't tell me if anybody knows the result, because I haven't watched the game today, but I'll be doing that tonight. And Bam Adebayo is the center for Miami, and he was talking about how much he's grown, and he has this goal to grow, 1% every month. And at the end of every year, he's 12%, and then he's 25% better. And a couple of years, 2 years down, he's 50% better than he was. And that's what it's about. Just incremental improvement in your life. And you're going to be shared over these sessions, like honestly, hundreds and hundreds of wisdom, tips, and ideas that can make you better at what you do. You won't remember much of what you hear unless you write them down, unless you say, that really resonated with me. I really like that concept. That's made me really think about a goal I want to work on. That's really made me think of something that's going to help me. I'm going to add these 3 things together, and it's all going to be a positive experience. And then when you do those sort of things, you tend to win. And you've got come back to that, but you've got this activities action planner in your first documents I've given you, where you can write down things that you want to do. You can keep them in a journal, but here's just one simple plan. Write down some of the things that you plan to do as a result of these courses. I keep my phone. I have notes in here on the notes. I use the notes app, and I'm always writing notes. And if I'm writing a book, then I'm always keeping my notes about the book, and I'm always, because I otherwise remember them. I write down my goals and things like that I want to work towards. I make lists of things. This is just another way of doing that. I really like using a tool that to run meetings. I don't know how much we'll be able to use this in this environment as much as when we're brainstorming together, but when we are doing some brainstorming ideas, we will use it, and I just want to take you through it to understand it. And it's a really cool tool. It's an Edward de Bono who's coined the term lateral thinking. He's considered one of the great thinkers of the 20th century. If you haven't read his stuff or done his audio programs, they're fantastic. Years and years ago, I was tested in the chartered accounting firms as they did about our aptitude. And I'm pleased to say my verbal and my numerical skills were like in the top 1% of the adult population, but my lateral thinking was like 15% or something. It was like horrendous. And I went and did a whole bunch of de Bono stuff. Like I got his whole tape series at the time, and there were like 16 cassette tapes. And I spent a whole day in an 8-hour session with him. And then I went to a workshop with him for 5 hours, and honestly became very lateral, much more innovative with my thinking. And you can do that. And he coined this thing that, when we go to a party and we're wearing a hat or a mask, we can have a lot of fun because we're sort of outside ourselves. We're in a costume party. That's why fancy dress costume parties are so much fun, because sort of behind, yourself. And this is that idea that by wearing a different color hat, it can change the mood of our gathering. And the idea is that we are all on the same wavelength at the same time, because that when you're on a positive bent saying things and somebody throws something negative at you, it can bring down the whole temper of the room. And that's the idea of the 6 hats, is that we're all positive, or we're all whatever. So each color represents a different emotion and control for it. And it's very helpful, and particularly when you're in a real brainstorming sort of session. So blue hat is the hat worn by the person in control, who determines the hats that we use. And blue is cool and calm, and blue would say, now we're going to wear a yellow hat for a while, and let's brainstorm how we create a better umbrella. And I want to use green. What new ideas can we come up with? And then all right, what's wrong with those ideas? Let's put a black hat on. So yellow is then positive, sunny, good things we like. A lot of good things come out of good things. Green is new ideas, spring, easy to remember. Growth. When we're brainstorming things to be creative, we usually put a green hat on. Black is negative, the bad guy, and you learn as much often from negative or bad things as you do from positive. White is data. It's objective, real data. Somebody says, I have white data. It's because, Jack, who I can see his face here, Jack has gone into Pedal, and he's seen that we have 12% market share in this suburb, 18% market share in that suburb. We've sold 37 houses. That's white data. I just have this feeling that we're the leaders in that area. That ain't white data. That's emotional. That's just red. It's good, bad, it's emotional. I just think, got an idea, I feel like, but it's not necessarily correct. So you've got that as a handout. We'll try to use it in our sessions. Again, I'm still got to figure out how we all sort of interrelate as we're doing this. But yeah, one of the things I've given you as well is a reading list, which, I hope you have an opportunity to get through some of these books. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It isn't a throwaway to say you should get this book. You should get this book. It's one of the great business reads of all time. It's I don't know whether it was number 1 or number 2 of the 20th century in terms of business book sales. It's kind of life-changing in terms of it's very, very helpful. You can't get enough of Covey once you start with him. Most people who I get to read this book have told me they've read it 3, 4, 5 different times. I've done it so many times and done the whole Covey program. I've done hours and hours and hours of Covey stuff. It's great. The other books down there, First Things First, is not a great book as much as the concept, which we're going to work through a lot. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership we're going to go through, but this book, if you were to get it, gives you a lot more depth about each of the laws that we'll probably talk about. The only thing that matters is about quality, which we're going to cover later on. It's a really interesting book, but there's a lot of quality books out there. Book of Leadership Wisdom is quite an interesting read. And then there's a few other really good business books, Making It in America, Coach Wooden's Pyramid of Success, which we're going to talk about a lot. Obviously, I've got my books on there as well that I've given you the links for, and the YouTube searches on the sort of the people that we're talking about. One of the things I asked you to do is spend a few minutes on why you're doing this course and what you might like to get out of it. And I said I would ask some questions, but no one feels, you don't have to feel that you have to, but on your own motivation for doing the course and what might be some of the goals that you want to get out of it. Would anyone care to sort of unmute and just tell us something? And don't go through 3 or 4, just give us one and let other people contribute. But, is there anyone who'd like to talk a little bit about their motivation for doing this course? And be brief, like we got to keep moving, but give us a good quick tour of your idea. Anyone like to jump in?
I'm happy to, Bradley. I'll be happy to.
Sandy.
So I probably ended up with about 3 or 4 bullet points, but the one thing that really sort of resonated really well with me was to build on the knowledge within the sessions that are actually delivered and interlink it to the past courses that I've actually trained and completed myself. So be able to use the information that you give over, process it, interlink it with stuff that I've done before and be able to take it back and work within my business life and personal life.
Right. Thank you, Sandy.
So the other one for number 6 was, the one thing I thought was really important, as I don't really know what's the content of the course, is to be able to create goals as we further move through the course, and being able to understand what the course is delivering, and being able to expand and think laterally, and be able to set further goals as we get further in with a better understanding.
Right. Thank you for those. Excellent. Anyone else?
I'm happy to go, Bradley. Melissa here. Mine are very dot point. I would like to improve on my interaction and communication skills in order to be a more effective leader and colleague. I think the course will give me a better understanding of the different personality types, which will then help me to understand them, know how best to approach them, interact with them, and hopefully achieve positive outcomes with all of those different personality types we find within the business. That stems from, I think one size fits all management style doesn't really sit well with me. So I think this will help with that.
Right. We'll do a lot of that.
Yeah. And the last one was that I think learning and implementing some of these different skills will help me outside of work as well, perhaps being a better communicator outside of the workplace in personal relationships as well.
No doubt. Not that you need to improve, but it will.
Huh.
Anyone else like to contribute?
I think for myself, probably there's more of an awareness of what's around. So different personality types, different traits. And I think in a listing perspective as an agent, being able to sort of change hats, so to speak, that you can engage and really be on their level.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. Before we move on, anyone else like to add anything?
Yeah, it's Jane here. For me, basically relationship and managing people. So having a greater understanding of both myself and a greater understanding of other people, and learning how best to manage myself through that understanding and manage other people, so that the ultimate outcome is a benefit for all, whether it's myself, work colleagues, clients that I work with, any relationship. So just that deeper understanding and ability to manage.
Right. Excellent. We'll do that to death. We're going to do a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Anyone else like to contribute? Okay, all good. Thank you. I appreciate those inputs. And as it says, leadership development program, and it's going to cover a lot of things around that. The reason I start with change management and why I think this is a cornerstone of it all is if you can't implement the things that you learn, then they don't, bring a whole lot of value to the equation. When you think about how do I actually change the environment, whether it be home, club, work environment, there's ways of doing it. And I learned about culture in the 80s when, to be frank, I joke about this, but most people just thought culture meant yogurt. Like no one in Australia had any idea what culture meant when I first started talking about it, but I was so well read on management stuff. And now obviously people say our culture's good, our culture's bad, our culture, communication's good, but the reality is most people don't understand what culture is and how it's formulated and how you actually could control and manage the culture. And we're going to do this in this session 1 about change management, come to really understand culture, because changing things involves fundamentally changing the culture, or else you haven't really changed anything. So we're going to work through this, and this is what today's about. And we're going to do a little bit of a case study after of Fletcher's, about how I went about understanding Fletcher's and making the changes I made all those years ago and really continue to do forevermore. One of the things that we've found in trialing this and using Zoom with some other people is that when we get to video, the video will look better if I take it off full screen. So I'll be doing that as we get to each video. It's a bit distracting, but you'll get a better picture of the video. And I try to use a lot of video in our presentation to make it interesting, particularly during the cubby stuff and the wooden stuff. We'll do a lot of video. So here we go. If at any point you have a question or a comment, please unmute and interject. I'd like it to be as interactive as possible. Most of the session is me talking at you unless you ask me questions in that. Obviously, the wooden one and Powell is a lot more of you. You guys are going to do most of the talking in the next 2 sessions after this. But this one's a lot of me. Life is short. There's a reason why I use this video, and it is because life is short. You know, if you don't get into things, things don't happen. And so I'm a real big believer in this whole idea that get on with it, make a difference, make a change, learn things, grow, do things. And that's what this course is really about. It's about moving on. And I hope by the end of each session, you're a little smarter, got a little more wisdom, figure out how you can apply it better in what you're doing. Culture is a really fascinating thing, and it's a combination of what we believe, which is our values, and it's also what we do, our behaviors. It's the combination of those two, and we'll talk about what that means. You know, this idea, do as I say, not as I do, doesn't really work. You know, people will see what you do, they'll see your behaviors, and they'll see this idea of framing, which is I call it, and which we're going to talk about. But what we believe, our values, shapes what our behaviors are. And for example, if we talk very strongly about we don't allow people to yell at people in our values, and then in our behaviors, sometimes somebody might yell and we go and say, hey, that's not part of our culture here. That's not part of our values. You really can't do that. And they go, oh, yeah, sorry, I won't do it. And they do it less often, and then they don't do it at all. We're sort of doing that. If it's not part of our values and people just do it and get away with it, then it just keeps becoming more and more what they do. So what we believe shapes what we do. So our values shape our behaviors if we're honest to them and if we try to push them. And this is like fundamental stuff to really understanding culture. And so how do we influence all that? Well, the first way is through our infrastructure, which is our hard things that we can feel and see, our technology, our systems of measuring things, our structures, our processes. You know, think how much, for example, Fletcher's has changed in the last couple of years with all the technology we've brought in for salespeople. Think how different it is now in terms of doing opens with your iPads and doing your authorities and your bidding and being able to do authorities and send them off to your clients and do contracts and send them off. That's changed the way we do things. And it's changed the culture. It's made it possible for us not to have to be in the same lounge room with people to do these things. And it's made it a lot easier for us to take that data and then send them out active pipe and all of that. And now we communicate with our clients heaps more just by, in this case, a change in infrastructure. It's also supported very strongly by our attitudes, which are internally held beliefs and perceptions about things like communication and feedback and education and role modeling and all those things that we believe, all those things that matter to us. Do we try to communicate regularly? You know, the daily updates coming out to you guys originally daily and now 3 times a week through COVID, is part of our culture. It's the way we do things. We want to communicate. We want everybody to be as informed as possible. And imagine the difference if we weren't doing that. If we were communicating a lot less, how it would have been, how complicated for all of us. It's about the way we approach education. Is it important? Do we believe in having regular programs? Do we believe in sending people off to things? Do we believe in helping fund their education? And when you take the concept of the two and you look at these values and behaviors, which is sits at the sort of the top of what we do, and then you look at all these initiatives that we do, they're either infrastructure or attitude. Every single thing you do is a combination of those two. For example, I could have brought in real-time agent as far as using it as an app, but if we didn't bring in all the training and basically say to people, as far as attitude, you have a drop dead date. You know, after X date, you're not going to be able to use paper authorities anymore. You're not going to be able to do your bidding on bidding sheets. You have to do this. We then got a change in culture because all of a sudden people are using it because we put the infrastructure in place, and we've also got this infrastructure. We've also changed the attitudes, and by doing those two things through our initiatives, we can start to measure things and see how they go, and it's surrounded by measurements and how many of our authorities were being done on the app, and we tracked down the agents who weren't using it because we could see on the measurement that certain people weren't, and we went and we spoke with them and we offered them more training and we told them they had to do it by X date because we're going to turn off the alternative. And all of a sudden we have this changed behavior and changed culture, and it happens with this thing called alignment, which we'll spend more time on Covey, but alignment means it makes sense. For example, you can't spend a whole lot of time working on training people to use real-time agent if we don't actually have it in place for them to use it. There's no use having the app if people don't have iPads. So you sort of have to do things in logical sequences. We've got to get people using iPads and comfortable with them. And then we can put software on there that's going to really help them use it even more. And then we run training and communication to support that. And then we bring in things like carrot and stick. You know, carrot is it's going to be a lot easier. You don't have to send emails. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Your clients are going to love it, blah, blah, blah. Stick is, hey, if you don't use this, this is what's going to happen. And some people respond to carrot. Some people respond to stick. Some people just do things because they can see it makes sense and they don't need necessarily either to be motivated. But this house of culture takes across all of these things. We're shaped by our values and behaviors. All our initiatives fall into this category, either predominantly infrastructure or attitude or a combination of the two. To get what we want, we need to measure and monitor to know that we're making progress and where to hit the hot spots and where to do things and how to convince people that it's worth doing. And it all has to happen in a logical flow. It all has to happen through alignment because otherwise it just fails. And historically, 75% of change initiatives in companies fail to achieve their desired outcome. 75% of investments in infrastructure fail to achieve the payback they expected to get. A similar number fail, just completely fail and disappear off the thing. I think you could agree at Fletcher's, we don't have too many of those. Pretty much whatever we implement becomes the way we do things. And occasionally we do things like, you know, we went early into Mobi, which was mobile numbers on our boards. We went early into QR codes. They were big infrastructure and attitude issues. We got changed behavior. We got people using them, but then the technology didn't really take. But as far as technology that survives and changes that survive, we've done pretty well about keeping things in play because we follow this. They fit within our values and behaviors. We understand the combination of infrastructure and attitude to get the change. We do as much measurements as we can, and we do them in a logical flow through alignment. And if you can get this changed infrastructure plus a changed attitude, you will get a sustained changed behavior leading to cultural change. Does that make sense? Nod of heads. And that's what you're really trying to aim for. You got to get this happening and this happening to actually get a change behavior. And, ultimately, that's what you're trying to do by making any sort of change, because why put in infrastructure if it's not going to lead to change? You're just spending money on something that people aren't using. Why work on attitudes if it's not actually going to lead to any sort of change behavior on people actually being more focused on communicating better, servicing their clients better, understanding certain parts of training better use of some of the softwares? What's the use of getting a changed attitude if it doesn't change the actual behavior? So,
can I ask a question, Bradley?
Yeah.
What happens when you have that resistance that comes at you when you put the changed infrastructure in and you're trying to change the attitude, but you're getting resistance back from that person? They're giving you the yes, 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 but really it's a no.
Yeah, well, that's a passive resistor. They don't actually tell you they're not going to do it, but they don't do it. Well, we're going to cover that in this module. We're going to work through that. So I think you'll get your answer as I go, Sandy. So, how do you get change? How do you get this stuff working? It's the directors, it's the leaders of the business have to believe in it and push it, be willing to make investments in things, being willing to support the programs, being willing to, do the steps necessary for alignment. No other way really works. Ultimately, if you can't get the owners to buy in and, to influence the managers, then very few things will really change and stick. And, when we have situations where an owner, or in our case, a director, is slow to take up something, it usually impacts the office's effectiveness in doing it. We could have other offices that are way ahead of another office simply because the directors have not embraced it as much. Top down, bottom up is what I think works really, really well. Get a few champions. So Sandy, part of answering your question is get some people at the bottom end who are using it, who are going, this really works. This really helps me. I love this. And just try to deal with the naysayers. There's a number of 100, and this is like statistically proven, it's like white data, that for every change initiative, 25% of the people are fully in support. They love the idea. 25% of the people don't like the idea and don't really want to change. And the 50% in the middle will go with the flow. If they see that it's going to be successful and they believe the company makes these successful things, they'll just go with it because they don't really care. They don't want to fight it. It's fine. It's something new. It's different. They'll just do it. But if they see it's going to fail and it doesn't make sense, whatever, then they'll go that way, and then you get your failure. You got to get 75% of the people over the line, get a change to really stick. And so you got to work on the people who are the champions. Sorry? You got to work on the people who are the champions to help show you how this works and the results they're getting. And, and every time we run Teams training, with software, I ask people who I know have had success. I'll say, hey, Stephen, can you tell us how you use the auction platform? Ben, tell us a bit about your active pipe success, or, or about your, success on a certain software, because I know that they're champions, they're using it, they're liking it, they're seeing good results from it, and they can help influence others. So it's this top down driving it, but it's the bottom up using it and saying, this really works. I really like this. And helping some of the people who are in that middle category, or the naysayers, to shift their perspective. And the interesting thing about the bottom 25, the ones who don't want to do it, they tend to be ones who just choose that they don't want to change for change's sake rather than that specific initiative. And often when you can show them the benefits of it, you can work with them individually, help them, then they will become your most ardent supporters because they're that sort of black and white person. Same thing about the top 25. They're usually the people who just like change, like to do the next thing. And again, if you can get them really being into it and helping some of the others, you get that wave going in the right direction. there's a lot of problems with change. Can you guys see the whole cartoon there, or do you see the Zoom screen? Are my faces in the way or not? Can you see the cartoon?
Yeah, it's all there.
Okay. I thought that was funny. You know, the first problem with change programs is you have the wrong people. You know, certain people you just, you know, if you want to bring new technology in and your whole entire workforce, and I'm 61, so I'm not offending anyone, but your whole workforce is 60 plus, you can have a much harder time bringing new technology in than if it's in their 20s and 30s, where people are more open to change and doing new things and stuff. But the wrong people usually mean driving the program. You know, I've come in leadership roles, a number of different companies, and you know, I can remember one of my law firms, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, basically didn't. I was 30 years his junior. You know, I'm the CEO. He's 60 something. I'm 30. And, you know, he had no interest in listening to me. He had no interest in really changing. And, you know, my interest was firing him. I enjoyed that. When I came into, you know, Fletcher's, somebody who worked there, and payroll lady had no interest in evolving how we did it. And, you know, she's gone. You know, I'm never going to keep people in positions that are going to hijack the programs. I'll give them every chance to grow and learn. But I would rather, like I did at Fletcher's, I put Jackie, she was the assistant accounts clerk, and I made her in charge because I could see she could do the job. I made my assistant at that law firm running the department. I said, I'll help you. I'll teach you how to do this. I'll promote people who have the right attitude and who have the aptitude that I can see can do what they need to do, rather than having the wrong people who get in your way, who just don't want to do it, who just want to block you. And so a lot of problems are that people persevere with the wrong people. People just keep going, oh, I can change this person. I can get them to do it. I can get them to do it. But, you know, if people are blockers and they don't want to do it, you know, you probably have little chance of getting them to come to the party. The changes aren't aligned with your strategic direction. So people don't really see how this fits. You know, like at the moment, our strategic direction is becoming paperless, paperless, paperless. Everything we're doing clearly is what. If all of a sudden we brought in new paper systems to do things, everyone's going to go, hang on, this doesn't fit. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to use that pad anymore because everything else is digital. Why do I have to do that? And it would fail. So you have to be smart about what the next stage is and the next stage and the next stage when you're doing these things. Cost reductions are not supported by changes. So, you know, a lot of times people are trying to, you know, lower costs, make things more profitable, but yet you're not making the changes to do it. So for example, I said to our directors a few years ago, I want to make it easier for our salespeople to do their job. I want to cut our cost of doing business at the same time. And by bringing in more technology, or bringing in the global team to help with a lot of the back office stuff, we're able to achieve that. But if we didn't do those things and I just was trying to cut costs, then the business just goes backwards. You have to be able to improve your infrastructure, improve the attitudes to make the cost cutting actually work, to raise your margins back by doing things smarter and quicker. I mean, look how much time we've taken out of the whole processing system by using, you know, Trello and Campaign Track, the way we're using it in Campaign Agent and Real-Time Agent, and all of those things have taken so much time out of it for everyone. You know, so many emails aren't sent anymore, so many texts aren't sent, so many documents don't have to be scanned and sent off to people, and so many things have improved because we've worked on the infrastructure and the attitude along the way. Often they're just seen as flavor of the month. You know, everyone's doing this, so we'll do this. You know, Active Pipe could be flavor of the month, right? Everybody's implementing a digital email system, but look how much effort we put into Active Pipe to make it stick. You know, we've worked really hard on customizing it. We've created all these great emails. We're constantly adding new emails to the system. We're updating the letters all the time. Everything's being used around Active Pipe. It's not flavor of the month. It is here to stay. It's what we do. It's how we do it. Same with Box and Dice. Same with Real-Time Agent. Same with Campaign Track. You know, we put a lot of effort into it, and therefore it's going to be lasting. If people think something's a flavor of the month and it's going to be gone next month, then we just have to ride it out. Just smile and say yes, but don't actually do it. That's what happens. And that's Sandy's comment from earlier. You know, people say yeah, but then they don't do it. You got to get people doing it, and you got to hunt down those that aren't doing it and find out why. Is it lack of education? Is it lack of attitude about it? They just don't want to do it. Figure out why doesn't that person embrace this, so you can get them on the side you need them on. And by having data, you can do that because you can work out who's not doing it, who's not using it properly. You know, when we have a problem and someone tells me, oh, we have a problem with salespeople, they do X. And I say, well, how many people are we talking about? Oh, 2. Well, why don't we just communicate with those 2 instead of blaming the whole team of 60 people? Why don't we just go and talk to those 2 and find out why they keep doing their schedules wrong or why they keep doing that wrong? And we're in an era of data. We got more white data than we've ever had, you know, in our lifetime now. Everything's recorded. So we have a much greater chance now of having that happen. There's some key success factors that you need when you're talking about change and to make change really sort of happen for you. Again, we talked before about leadership. You've got to get this board and management support. You know, there has to be a focus on what you want. It can't be just a fly-by-night. It can't be said once and be done. Maybe people who have implemented things that we do get tired of us repeating them several times in notes or in updates and things like that. But the point is, not everybody's at the same pace. Not everybody is using it or doing it the way we need it to do it. So we've got to keep that focus. Walk the talk is a famous sort of line from the 80s. And, you know, if you're a director or manager and you don't do it, you know, I'm adamant about people not parking in the visitor spots at Canterbury, because when I first got there, they're constantly by agents coming from other offices parking there, or people can't be bothered to park on the street and they park there. And then our clients pull under our car park and they've got nowhere to go. And there's always people coming in Canterbury. And so I'm adamant about people not parking in the visitor spots. So how could I park in the visitor spot? I got to walk the talk. And sometimes I drive under the car park and somebody's in my spot and I'm like, oh. You know, and I can't park in the visitor spot because if somebody sees my car there, then I'm not walking the talk. If I believe that people should look after themselves and I walk out of the boardroom leaving dishes and cups and dirty room and I don't help pick up some of the stuff, then I'm not walking the talk. If I talk about using certain technology and I don't use it, how am I walking the talk? So, you know, leaders to be a positive role model and to get things happening have to do what they say. Do as I do, not as I say, works better than do as I say, not as I do. That makes sense. You got to do it. You know, if I say to people, I don't yell at people, but they see me yelling at people, what are they going to believe? They're going to believe I yell at people. You know, and so remember, what we believe actually shapes our values, but what we do is what people are going to really remember. All right, so I'm shaped by what I believe, but what I do is what's going to be lasting. And if I say we're going to use Campaign Track to do this, and I do it, and I make sure, and I keep reminding people, and we hunt down those who aren't using it, then believe me, Campaign Track will succeed. Ensure alignment. That's our job. You know, I always say to all my team and management, anyone potentially having a problem, that if there's an issue that I need to be aware of, if there's a blocker, if there's a resource you need, if we haven't done everything right, tell me, because we got to make this work. I want to know, because I'll get rid of the blocker, I'll get rid of the issue, I'll give you more resources, I'll do whatever's required to help you to make sure that we can actually get alignment and get this being successful. And sometimes they'll tell me that certain directors are being very negative about something, and I'll go and talk to them. And I'll go to understand why. And, you know, I remember years ago in a law firm when I was a line manager, I was director of human resources and marketing. And I think that actually this is before I was even marketing, I was just human resources. And the marketing manager came into my office. And so we were peers. And she said, you have this sort of uncanny ability to get the partners to do what you want. and I can't. And can you help me? You know, I said, well, give me an example. She said, well, we want to do a certain type of whatever invitation event. We want to do it this way, and this partner wants it to do it this way. And I said, well, why do you want to do it that way? And she said, well, this is going to take 2 hours of labor to do it, and we can get it out the door. The way he wants to do it, it's going to take about 8 hours. And you know, and I said, have you explained that? Well, you know, he doesn't really listen. So I said, well, let's go and I'll help you. We went in, and I remember the partner's name was Peter. And in a major law firm, that's probably a 50% or 33% chance they'll be named Peter, Paul, or John, and all these major firms. That's what they really were. And anyway, I went into Peter's office and I said, Peter, would you mind for a minute? We're trying to do this event, and I understand you have an objection to the way it's being suggested. Could you tell me why? Covey, seek first to understand. And he said, well, I think it would be more effective in terms of the client receiving it if we do it this way because of that. And I said, is that the only reason? He said, yeah. And I said, well, this way that they want to do it will take 2 hours of labor, and it's going to achieve this outcome. And this way is going to be about 8 hours, and 8 hours, forget it, do it that way. I said, okay. And we left the room. And I said to her, now I did 2 things. One, I sought first to understand, because partners want to have their say. And I really wanted to understand why he had an objection to what you wanted, because it didn't make sense to have an objection to that. So therefore, you hadn't sold your case well enough. So, you know, the goal is always to understand where people are coming from. So when we have knockers in this, or we have blockers, then my job is to empower others to go and find out why. And if they can't, then I will get on the line and go and call somebody and say, well, how come you're not using this software? Oh, I just haven't invested the time yet. I got nothing against it. I just haven't found an hour. I said, well, what about if I send out X to spend an hour with you to show you how to use it? Would you use it? Because you need to use it. If you don't use it, I'm having trouble getting others in your office to use it. Would you do that? Yeah, sure. All right, let's set up a time. You know, and so our job at this level is to get rid of blockers, to get rid of impediments, to find out why things aren't going to work. Hopefully ahead of time, but no matter, even if they come in a just-in-time basis, deal with them. Because otherwise people get frustrated. And as I always say, we only have so much time for change. You know, we all got our day job to do. And if I'm a manager and I'm trying to get something implemented and I've got all these knockers or people who just don't do it, I lose energy. I lose interest in it. And if I'm the manager and I'm trying to get this done and I lose focus, I'm not walking the talk, I'm not ensuring alignment, etc., then it fails. And then I fail. And so my whole sort of object is if we get behind this and really believe in it, we're not going to fail. And we're going to do what it takes to actually succeed. The next is, we talked before about, you know, one of the problems is the wrong people. You got to have the right people. You got to have team players who want to make it work and help you to make it work. And you got to find your right champion. You got to find somebody who really believes in the product or believes in the system or whatever and can sell it and can really believe in it and own it. And when I give something to someone like Beth has Active Pipe or Tracy has Box of Dice, I say, you got to live this. You're our champion. No one's going to know Active Pipe better than you, Beth. You're going to be involved in everything to do with Active Pipe, and you're the one who has to make this work. And if you got problems with anyone, tell me. If you need investment, tell me. If we need to do things differently, tell me. Same with Proposal Point. You know, we've spent so much money and time getting it right, and Beth's been around every single aspect of that. Tracy's a guru of Box and Dice. She owns it, knows how to use it really well. Get the right people, get people who will help other people. And it's really important to prepare people for change, to understand what it's about. And guess what we're doing right here, guys? We're educating 50 people on how to better understand change and how to better understand making things happen. You know, understanding what it takes to get from A to B is critical. And if you don't do these sort of things, it doesn't happen. Does that make sense? said, there's a lot of alignment in that car, you know, just right time, right place, doing the right thing. Continuing, there's got to be clearly understood objectives of what we're trying to achieve. Why are we implementing this? Why are we opening that office? Why are we making these changes? Why are we, you know, for example, campaign agent has a new way of doing things that on the surface look like it's going to make it a lot better for our salespeople. But it has some pretty profound changes to the back end, the way we do our accounting as well. So this week, there's a session with the key people who run that sort of thing, finance, marketing, myself, looking at this to understand whether we think we should implement it or not. We have to understand really the pros and cons, the benefits, the costs, make sure it's right before Fletcher says, yes, let's do it. And I can tell you that campaign agent have told us that a lot of their clients have just said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Without a great deal of thought behind it's got a pretty dramatic effect on our accounting at the back end. And if we're going to do it, we need to understand it and see that we can cope with it. So we try to make sure we understand what we're trying to achieve before doing it. And I think our suppliers would generally say that we add a great deal of value to what they do. We probably ask more critical questions than a lot of them, because I think we're good at that, trying to understand it and make sure that things fit in. So what are the objectives? Deal with the pain quickly, like deal with the people that are giving you a hard time, shut off things that we don't want anymore. If things aren't working the way we want, fix them. If people are having problems, get them attended to quickly. Deal with whatever is happening. Get rid of the hard things. Get rid of the bad emails. Get rid of the bad papers in your in tray. Get rid of the bad people. Get rid of the bad ideas. Get rid of things that just aren't going to work. Don't suffer through them and think, oh, well, we'll just put up with that and it'll be all right, because what it does is it poisons everything. You know, like, we don't like to deal with the hard things, but the hard things are the most important things to deal with and get them done. So if we're trying to make change and there's a problem, like, for example, an important person in an office is poo-pooing what we're doing, I can be sure to be found in that person's office or them in my office pretty smart quick, talk about it and understand what their concerns are, see if they're legitimate. And I'm always sitting on the fence about these things. And then sometimes they're really legitimate and they've got real reasons why they think it's a problem. And I will then work on it and I'll say, well, if we can iron out these problems, do you agree that it's a good thing for us to do? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just frustrated with this. Other people within the organization might take it that they just don't like the whole idea. My experience is sensible people aren't like that. You can generally reason with sensible people. And if you can understand where they're coming from, seek first to understand, usually you'll be able to resolve their issues and they'll become fans. And while we're on that point, you need to have, on a scale of 1 to 10, for customer service, they've long proven that you have to have at least a 9, right? You have to be 90%. So 4.5 out of 5 or 9 out of 10 to have a raving fan. Does that make sense to start with? All right. They found, white data, that usually the only way to get somebody to a score that high is for them to have had a bit of an issue and you've helped them to overcome it. And therefore they go, wow, this person's listening and improving things for me. Therefore, I'm going to give them a really high rating, because the next person may not do that. That's been found in 2 different banking studies, and that's what the whole Net Promoter Score is based on, the Harvard study in this. And that's why you need someone to be a 9, be a referrer, and an 8's a good fan, and below that, they're doubtful, and below that, under a 5, they're detractors, and it's all based on those initial banking studies that were done. And therefore, it's the same thing. If somebody has a problem with proposal point, and I take the time, or Beth or Sarah takes the time to understand what the problem is, and we hear it, and we review it, and we consider it, and we end up going back and saying, you're absolutely right, we've now fixed that. What are we going to get? We're going to get more loyalty. We're going to get a fan. We're going to get somebody who's on board. Plus, who better than the people using it to evaluate it? people are using it in their real life are the ones who are going to go, hey, this works well, this doesn't work well. So we implemented a proposal point after 6 months of back and forth to get it done. Yeah, hard work. And we knew that we were 80% there. And the idea really of good implementation is get to 80% as quickly as you can, implement it, and then fix what you need to fix. And we've had about 15 ideas, which I think Beth would agree, we probably pushed the button on 9 or 10 of those to change and improve. And they're starting to flow through. And we'll continue to do that. And therefore, the people that are making those recommendations and are being heard and are seeing them implemented become fans. If we didn't, and we just said, no, let's wait 6 months, and then we'll take all of them in, what are we going to get? We're going to get people frustrated who don't want to use the product because we're not dealing with the pain. More and more people become detractors, and ultimately it fails. So deal with the pain quickly. Lots of communication about what's working, what's not working, getting feedback, getting this, that. And I think you'd all agree we're pretty good at that at Fletcher's. We work pretty hard on communicating and trying to keep communicating as much as we can.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, buddy.
Whoa! You know you can't bring that weak ass stuff up in this Humpty Bumpy. You killed it, Joe. You make some more. You know that, baby. Else you in for a long day. A long day. Good triple D's up in this bitch. You got mail, baby. Whoa!
So, I'll see you later.
Check razor! Check razor! Get ready for the pain, woman! The pain train's coming! Listen there! Don't hurt me! Please don't hurt me! Thank you, sir! Thank you! Break was over 15 minutes ago, bitch! Wow! You can't walk away from a K-22 paper jam! You must be out of your mind, son! This is my world, Donnie! You just work there, baby!
Hey, John. How are you, huh?
That ain't your cake, Philip! That's Simone's cake! You eat someone else's cake again, and I'm gonna give you a slice of Terry's special pain cake! And you won't for seconds of that!
I think we all need a Terry Tate in our environment to deal with the people who just don't want to do what you want done. So the grand plan, how do you do all this? How do you make it happen? I think the idea is that it's got to be flexible, but sufficiently focused is a really good sort of overall broad thing about how do you create change and how do you have a plan. The reason I say that is that if you're not flexible when you get, for example, the proposal point, we could have been, no, this is what we're doing, we know best. Then we just get all of these distractors. But in the real way we're doing it is we're focused, we know what we want, we have a process of looking at all of these changes. So we're flexible in the sense that we can make edits and make changes, but we know where we're heading and we know what we're doing and we know a process for making those changes. And that's the goal. So certain things we have to do is who's going to participate? Who are the key people to help you get your change in place? And it's not just, for example, someone like Beth to drive the actual proposal point and Sarah to help with all that. It's which salespeople can we get trial this with that will use it and will give us some good feedback and will be our champions? Who has good sort of karma around the team that if we get them to say this is really good, others will listen. So we got to find our champions to help us with the change program. We have to educate them on what we're trying to achieve. the processes, the outcomes, the methodology we're going to use. So they can be a positive contributor to it. And everyone's got different levels of that. For example, you know, the actual approval process for proposal point is not necessary that others know how it works. It's important that Beth, Sarah, and I know. So basically, when somebody makes a recommendation, Beth puts it on a spreadsheet. She captures all those. We get as many people commenting about those as possible. We then review those on a fortnightly basis, Sarah, Beth, and I. And sometimes we ask to go back and get some more data to see if anyone else is having the same issue or concern. Ask a few of the other users who've used it. How do they feel about this? Excuse me. And then we ultimately can make a call. And if that we decide, yes, it's good, we then ask for a quote from the proposal point people as to how much is this going to cost? Is it worth doing? We get a quote. And then Beth runs it by me, and I say, yeah, that seems reasonable. Let's do it. And we make the change. And then we notify the people that this has changed. And others don't need to know all that, but we do, because we have a process that allows us to stay focused to get it right, not just one person saying, I want something. So one of the directors raised a point about something he wanted, and no one else had commented at all about it. And I said to Beth, well, it might make sense, but given lack of feedback, I'm gonna have a directors meeting, and this was on Friday. I'll ask them, I'll put it on the agenda just to ask quick. And I asked the directors this point, saying one of the directors doesn't want this. What do you guys think? And the other three people who spoke up all said, yeah, we agree. It's superfluous. We shouldn't have it. We don't need it. Let's remove it. And we did. And today, Beth announced in the daily update that you don't have to use a password on proposal point to send it to your clients, but you can. That came from one director, but then we sought feedback from another few to make sure that we were on the right path with it. There you go. This is really incredible tool, and one that I've used over and over and over again in my head. And in fact, I was doing an interview today at 11:30 for a potential salesperson who I really want. And he asked me how we get these changes in people and how we develop people. And I went through this model and said, well, this is what I do, whether it's a person or a system. This is a 5-step process that makes a huge amount of sense. And this is how we do things. And it's 5 steps. They're very logical, and I'm going to take you through all 5, and then later we're going to look at a bit of how you put these into practice. So the first step is, where are we? And we don't always know just because people say, oh, I think this is good, bad, or indifferent. You really have to do a real, what's called an audit. When it works, you have to do an audit to work out where you are. And that involves a number of things. We then have to do how and why are we there? All right, so we know where we are, but why are we there? Like, how did we get to this point in time? And I'm going to take you through what a SWOT analysis is and how it works in a little bit. The third stage is, where do we want to go? So what are our goals? And if I was in this room with you right now, I would be saying that step 1 is A, I'm standing right here, and I decide I want to be over here. That's my goal. So that's step 3. And step 4 then is, oh, I love this video. I'm just gonna... Whoa! The point of that is aim high. With your goals, aim high. Anyway, how do I get from there to here is this step 4, which is my gap, is how do I get from here to there? It's a gap analysis. If I'm here, I want to be here, what do I have to do? For example, I have a 53% success rate in winning listings when it comes to a conclusion. And I want to be at 70%. So what do I have to do to get from 53 to 70? That's what I want to work on. How do I do that? Does that make sense? And so my stage 1, I'm at 53. If I've done a SWOT analysis, I've done a really good analysis of my listing appointments and where I'm at and and why I'm there, and I'll talk about SWOT later, but why I'm there. And then I come up and say, well, I want to get to 70. So then I got to get to stage 4 and say, well, what's the gap and how do I deal with it? How will I get there? What do I got to do to get from 53 to 70? And I've broken it down. There's like 10 points, and I've got 10 points. One is I've got to present better. I have to use better presentation tools than I'm using right now. Number 2, I have to be better presented. I want to dress better than I'm dressing right now. Number 3, I've really got to work on certain aspects of my scripts. Bang, you start to work through what's going to get you from there to there. Step 5 is how are we getting there? We have to monitor and measure what we're doing. So for example, oh, here's my co-presenter, Pablo, everybody. He's going to present with us throughout the course. If I'm trying to measure and monitor, it's the same thing we talked about before. Like, if I don't know my numbers, if I don't know the 53, if I don't know the goal of 70, and I don't have a way to measure how I'm tracking, am I up to 60 now? Am I up to 62? Am I still at 53? How can I do it? How can I go? So you have to have an ability to know, are you getting there? So when we look at things like, say, real-time bookings, a real-time agent, and we look at the authorities, we're able to determine how many of our people were using them and how many weren't, and then start to work out those that are using them and those that aren't. Then take the ones that aren't and go and talk to them and find out why aren't they using it, and whittle it down until there weren't any more not using it and everybody's using it. And then we work on other things as well, you know, some of the more quantitative things, qualitative things about it. And it's a cycle that then just repeats. It's always going. So where are we? How and why are we here? Where do we really want to go? What's my gap? What do I got to fix to get to that goal? And am I getting there? So here's a really simple little thing. I need $20,000 to go on a trip I want to take. I have 5,000. I have 12 months to get there. So I've done an audit. I've got 5,000. I've worked out that, you know, I've done this through saving and blah, blah, blah. And my goal is I need 20. There's $15,000 difference. I want to go in 12 months. I have to save $1,500 or whatever the amount is a month extra if I'm going to get there and get my goal. And I'm going to measure that every month. If I haven't got up to 6,500 at the end of 1 month, then I have a problem. And either my system's not going to work, and I've got to change it. I'm going to have to add to it anyway now because I'm not going to get there unless I improve that, and so forth. So lots of examples of how you can actually monitor and get there. Alignment we've talked about is that each step is implemented in the correct stage, and it's in support of the grand plan. It sounds like, you know, it's a simple thing, it's just a word, but if you don't do it, Pablo's rambunctious. If you don't do it right, it doesn't work. You know, if you start to, for example, force people to use something that's not working properly, then they become tainted. They don't want to use it in the future. You got to fix the problems as they're arising, and then you can push people to use them. If you do things with alignment, you will succeed. Well, you have a good chance of succeeding anyway. Communication. We talked about communicate. So let's talk about that. So the more people that understand what you're trying to do, the better you're going to have a chance of succeeding. I always say people really want to know why. You know, we often tell people how and when. We're implementing this new process on the 3rd of July, and they're like, but what if I took the time to explain why we're doing this? Why we have to evolve? Why I need you to do this? Even though it might cause a little bit of short-term pain, long-term it's going to be really successful, and it's going to help us save hours and hours and hours. Imagine if we didn't go down the path of being paperless during COVID, what our life would have been like. Just imagine for a minute how much more difficult it would have been if we didn't have paperless systems in sales and PM. Communication, there's some simple rules, and we're going to do a lot of communication in Covey, but, you know, briefly, it should be regular. You know, like that's why we were doing the update every day until the end of June. And then when really new information started to slow down, we went to 3 days a week, and we've maintained that. People would have an expectation that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they're going to get an update from head office about what's going on with Fletcher's and COVID. It should be brief because people don't want to read a novel, and those who need to know more can get more. But essentially, it's reasonably brief. Just give people enough that they need to know. Again, I talked about not just the what and the when, but why. Why are we doing this? Why is this important? How can you participate? How can you make a difference? Using the language that you're trying to get people to adopt and be part of is really helpful in change management. The more we use the word digital and paperless, the more people understand that that's our goal. And the more they can understand that this fits into that goal of being paperless. Oh, I know it's a bit difficult to use, but you know, our aim is to be paperless, and this is another part of the process. You agree that you really hate all these files and having to lug them around, right? Yeah. Well, this helps that. Paperless. We're trying to be paperless. You know, just keep using the words. And the 360 degrees concept is, you know, top, bottom, cross. You know, as much as you can incorporate everybody, then the more successful you're going to have in getting this to happen. So often I will tell the directors things and partners things, and then tell everybody. I'm telling the directors and the partners, so they're a bit ahead of it. So when staff then inquire of them of things, they know. Oh yeah, I was aware of that. Yeah, I'm in support of that. Yeah, I was told that. That's great. I'm glad we're doing that. 360 degrees as much as possible. These are things I think are really, really important to change management. And it's probably an overlooked thing by a lot of people, but because I'm, you know, 8 years a human resources director, and I think I'm a very, you know, humanistic CEO, I've always focused on the people, that these are really important factors. And I think if you can master these, making change is a lot easier. You know, so people really need to understand things at an organizational and at a personal level. And we'll do a lot more of this within Covey. But, you know, to start with the idea that at an organizational level, people need to understand what the organization is trying to achieve. Where do they fit in? How do I fit into that? What's expected of me? What is, you know, so why is Fletcher's implementing, you know, real-time agent? Well, we're doing it to save a lot of administration on your part and our part, to digitally store everything, to make it easier and everything in one place instead of using 7 different bits of software, trying to use one. Where do you fit in? Well, we're going to get you an iPad. You'll be using this for these 4 or 5 things. This is what your PAs can do to help with all of that. What we expect of you is by Christmas to be actually doing it and using it, because come the 1st of January, we're not using, you know, paper authorities anymore. We're not ordering them anymore. We're not using them anymore. That sort of thing. Oh, all right. Well, all right. I got to work towards that. And you get to September and they're not using it, and you go and find out why, and you push them and say, hey, you got to drop dead date, 31 December. You got to be using it, and start getting them using it. And if you don't find they're using it, call them up again and say, I'm going to get someone to come out and show you, and I want you to do your next, you know, 3 authorities on it. And all of a sudden they're just using it because they need to understand why and how they fit in and what they have to do. Ooh, sorry.
You polite, mate. Yeah, you hold up for a minute. Yeah, sure. Sorry, I finished. It's all right, I'll take care of that. I finished. Me too.
Well, I'm not sure I know any video better about fitting in than that one. Continuing on the human factor, then at a personal level, people need to be aware of what's going on, involved. It's not just thrust upon them. It's not just something, here's another thing from management, and enhanced. They're better off as a result. If you want people to accept it, they need to understand it, feel involvement of some kind, ask me questions, involve me in a training session, come and give me a personal one-on-one, show me how it's going to make my life better. I start to see those results, I start to become a believer, I start to want to use it. If it's just to make the company better, but it doesn't help me at all, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to embrace that as much. So it's got to work at both an organizational and at a personal level. You can see it's the right thing for the company. I get it. I get my role. For me, though, it's helping me, making it better. You know, I don't have to go on a listing appointment now and send emails to 6 different groups of people. I just click a button and I'm done. It's easier. I don't have to take all these names it opens and then have them entered into my database. It just happens because I'm capturing them at the open. And I can send a text to them right after the open with all of the people I wanted to send it to. And boy, all these people are going to immediately get my active pipe letters. So you don't have a big sell job. If people can't see that it helps company, it helps them, then they're probably not going to buy into it. So focusing on this human factor, I think, is a really important part of the equation. Years ago, I developed this model that I work under and we use and called RIRO. And there's quite a lot about this in my book, which you've all been given a link to. It's recruitment, induction, retention, outplacement. Basically, nothing happens with people in your organization that doesn't fall into these 4 categories. Now, induction these days is often called onboarding, but I refuse to change my model to RORO because it's been RIRO since the 80s. And but you know, you recruit people, bring them into your organization, bring them into your team, bring them into your office. Clients can be seen as a very similar thing. You win clients through recruitment. You have to bring them into understanding how they work with Fletchers. Through service, we want to retain them. And a little bit different, you know, but clients finish up with us because they've sold their house or whatever, and we put them into long-term. But with staff, we obviously do it through outplacement. So I'm just seeing what was on that. So just on this, if you don't, for example, when recruitment, help bring people into the organization through induction or onboarding in a reasonably understandable way and feel part of it and feel like this makes sense and they're not just feeling lost. And that's why, you know, when we hire people, we make sure all their marketing is ready, we get their desks all set up, we allocate people to look after them, we give them an induction schedule, we give them a bunch of documents, and we make them feel part of Fletcher's as quickly as possible. You know, I spend the first hour with pretty much everybody we hire, inducting them into what we're all about, what our values are, our history, how our structure works, who they report to and who those people report to. And then retention is about keeping people through all the policies that you have. It's through training and remuneration policies and social policies and communication and promotions and opportunities, and that's what all that retention stuff is designed to do. And outplacement is about keeping the business healthy. When somebody wants to leave, you want them to leave on their own terms with their dignity intact. If you want them to leave, you want them to leave on your terms with their dignity intact. You want people to be able to leave the organization well. You want people to be people that remain, to see that the people that left were treated well, are treated with respect, aren't bad-mouthed in the absence. It's really important to get this model right if you hope to have a healthy organization where change can happen. And it's not that hard, but it's something that takes some focus. The leadership's role in this whole change process is we've got to build a case for change. Why should people go from A to B? I was pretty happy using my paper authorities. Why do I have to use digital ones? Got to build a case why it's going to be better, why it's going to be easier. We have to create that vision and show people why, where we're heading to, what it will mean for them, how much better it'll be when we're paperless, how much more streamlined it'll be. We got to get people on board. We got to win their hearts and minds. We got to get them saying, yeah, I'm into this, I'll do this, and not lose them because there's problems with it and we're not fixing those problems. We're beating them over the head to do something they don't want to do. You've got to get them on board. What's in it for me? Why? I get the organization, but why should I want to do it? You've got to appeal to those, and you've got to figure out why, and then make it happen. Make it, when they start to use it, they go, you're right. So much easier, so much better. And if you can do that, you can usually win. You got to make things happen. That's that whole idea of fixing things, alignment, of getting rid of blockages, of getting the people who are being difficult to come on board, making additional investment where it's necessary to fix something, kicking butt of the suppliers who aren't moving fast enough to do what they need to do for us. Those sort of things, making it happen. And if leaders can make it happen, then you have a really great chance of making it succeed. And like if we look at Proposal Point as our latest sort of implementation, Sarah, Beth, and I have sort of driven it all together from the beginning. Beth does 75% of the labor. Sarah and I do, 25% input. But when everything needs to happen, we've got to be there to say, yes, Beth, we want to implement this. Thank you for doing all the groundwork. Here's our 5 options. You think we should do option 1. We agree with you. Here's the cost. Thank you so much, Beth. Yeah, let's do it. And we make it happen. And, the combination of Beth doing the groundwork and us saying, yes, that makes sense. And yes, I'll make that investment. And bang, it happens. And, I was asked something today costing a fair bit of money in these COVID times. And I went back to the person asking me and said, have you done X, Y, and Z? Yes, we've done all that. This is the answer and we need to do this. I said, okay, let's do it. A real relief of thank you came through. I could see that, when I said yes to do it. That's what we do. We got to make things happen. This is a 6-minute video. It's a really good
Okay. Well, this is the start of a pretty amazing adventure. I can't believe I get to do this. We're going to start here on this road and then see where the map takes us. Actually, it's already taken me someplace I never thought I'd go. It started a few months ago. I was doing a story on Cisco Systems. You got a team of 400 people to change their whole approach to product development.
When you're talking about a major change, where people really change their behavior, you just can't send out a bunch of emails and expect them to do it. You've got to be proactive, find the problems and the opportunities, get everyone to support and participate in the change. The whole company is now managing major change using a model we call the Cisco Change Roadmap.
The Cisco Change Roadmap, a powerful tool for change. Reporting from the frontiers of business, I'm Catherine Ford.
Change roadmap, eh?
Well, change is critical to Cisco's future growth. That's why they came up with it.
Interesting. Well, that's all for now. We'll see you back here at 11. And we're out. Hold up, everyone. Quick meeting. Come on up. So this roadmap is divided into 3 phases?
That's right. Prepare, implement, then manage. Prepare has the most steps. It has to be prepared right to succeed.
So what's up, Mason? We here to discuss the change roadmap? Well, kind of. You all know there have been big changes around here. Our new studio, new personnel. There's another change coming, and I need your help to prepare, implement, and manage it. We're adopting a new technology and reassigning camera crews. We've gotten some small DV cameras, and reporters are going to start shooting their own stories.
What? I don't know how to use a camera, and I don't want to know.
One-man band reporters? What a joke. We're going to be laughed off the air.
Mason, I hate to break it to you, but it is physically impossible to be in front of the camera and behind it at the same time.
I understand your concerns. Actually, Nicole trained at New York 1. She can show us all how to do it.
I'd be happy to.
Look, this isn't going to happen overnight. Catherine, what was the first step of that roadmap? I need your help.
Form a team.
Right. This is the team. Let's meet tomorrow at 10. I'll see you then. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Okay. Why are we doing this? In part, it's to lower costs, which is how we stay competitive. But it's just as much about increasing opportunities. Yeah, opportunities for a lot of sad-looking television. Think about it, Kent. How often have you wanted to go out and cover something, and I didn't have a crew to give you? And Catherine, how many years have you been asking to do your Highways and Back Roads series? I could never send 3 people on the road, but if it was just you and a camera...
Has everyone else's video stopped? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, stopped here as well.
I'm going to text Bradley now, let him know.
Yeah, mine stopped.
Maybe this is part of the course,
Just to see if we're paying attention.
how we react.
What did you do, Melissa?
I just texted him and then he just disappeared entirely. Sorry, everyone, I've jinxed it. Let's all just do a SWOT analysis to submit to Zoom about their functionality.
Has anyone texted him? I might send him a text or called him.
I think Melissa's talking to him now.
I sent him a text as soon as it happened.
Bradley's internet has decided not to connect to everybody, so he's just working on it now. Oh, he's the host. Okay.
He's there.
Melissa, maybe ask him if he needs me to share the presentation if he really can't get on.
You're muted now, Bradley. Oh, wait, here we go.
Okay.
Oh dear.
All right. So, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now. Yep.
No?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Can hear, but can't see.
All right. Thank you. All right. I don't know what that is, but can everybody, I'm just going to mute everybody if I can. No, I can't. I don't know. Okay. Technology. I can't even share the screen anymore. I'm trying, guys. I don't understand.
We can see your screen.
Can you? Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah,
I can't see that you can. Right. Okay. I can't see that you can see it. My whole share screening thing is gone.
we can see that.
Yeah, it's there.
I might just, given the time. All right. Given the time, I'm just going to go past that video and maybe we'll pick it up another time. So. Okay, so look, we're back into how we do the planning. So we're just going to go through the stages for you guys to understand it. So if you can't hear me, tell me somebody. Otherwise, I'm assuming you can see it and hear it. Oh, how funny. Now it's playing the video. Anyway, all right. Technology, it's our friend. All right. So we're going to look at more detail of the strategic planning plan, how you do audit. This is what I did when I came to Fletcher's. This is what I do when I look at a client. To gain a picture, and I would do the same if Ian walks into my office and wants me to do something with him or someone else. Start with financial and market information, understand where you're at, talk to whoever you need to. In this case, I spoke to all the directors and staff and suppliers and a range of clients to gain a familiarity with what Fletcher's were all about. I did one-on-ones with all of these main people. I did a lot of market research. We hired a public relations company to research over 200 clients who had recently transacted real estate, know what they thought. I went to other leading agents, non-competing agencies around Australasia to figure out what we didn't know and what they knew. So we could see, what we weren't doing and try to understand what we were doing right and wrong. Exchange information with those, began to benchmark what was good numbers in all these things, what was good programs and processes, so I could understand where we really were compared to where we could be. I attended conferences to that, obviously did a lot of reading and listening and absorbing to gain this whole picture of what was Fletcher in 2002. All right, you know, it ends up being what's on the bottom line of the financial statement, but that's just the bottom line of so much. It's all the offices and the people and the processes and the way we service clients and the way we do all of those things. All of that is this audit of where you're at. And then you come back to stage 2, how and why are we there? SWOT analysis. And SWOT is a long-standing tool used by businesses all over, started with, I think, Harvard. You categorize things into internal factors, which are your strengths and your weaknesses. And that's the same thing as if, you know, Jane, one of the ladies on here, is an agent. So if Jane's trying to have a really good look at her practice of where she's at, and she's done this whole audit to understand everything about her practice, and then she does a SWOT to say, well, what are my strengths and weaknesses? What am I really good at? And what am I not? So let's look at prospecting. What am I good at? What am I not? Listing, what am I good? What am selling, managing the vendor, managing the buyer, actually negotiating. What's my strengths? What's my weaknesses? To get a real picture of Jane. You then have your external factors, which is opportunities and threats. So for Jane in sales, the opportunities would be based on external, is to understand what's happening in the marketplace, what other things she could use. What if for example, if she's at 55% success rate on her appointments, and she's averaging 1.7% commission, and she looks around, even at Fletcher's, the people outside of herself, and realizes that the average of the top agents at Fletcher's are 70% and 1.9% commission. She all of a sudden realizes, well, there's some opportunity there. I could actually be doing better in both of these areas. She could look and go and see someone outside of Fletcher's and realize that, wow, they're getting 2%. What are they doing? And threats is that, you know, what are the factors that are out there that are going to make it harder for me? This other firm has implemented some better new technology that's going to make them stand out better in listing appointments, and I'm competing with them all the time. They're using a better auction platform than we're using. Therefore, they can sell it to their clients better. Their marketing looks better than our marketing. So what's it going to do to my practice? So you start to look at these factors of internal and external to come up with your analysis of why are you actually there? What are you doing really well? What aren't you doing well? What are your opportunities to do better? What are the threats if you don't change or improve? And you put all those together. And in fact, that's how I ended up being a human resources professional. Because when I was an accountant and I was ready to move out of accounting into my next stage to be a CEO, I went to a consultant working in my firm. And I first went to the HR guy, and he was terrible. And he didn't listen to me at all. And he just said, well, why don't you apply to be in this department, which was a heavy finance department? I said, because I'm done with finance. Then I went to this guy, David Field, who was a consultant working in our consulting department, and he was specialized in human resources. And I went and I said, David, I want to be a CEO. I'm done with my accounting. I don't know what to do next. You know, I don't know how to make the transition. And he made me do a SWOT analysis. He made me sit down and put 4 columns there about myself, think about all the things that are involved in my job, all the things that I like and don't like, and then rate myself across all of those. And I did a self-inventory of myself for the first time ever, because somebody told me to do it, and I did it. And I went back to him and I sat down with him and went through it all. And he said that he'd been doing a bit of digging about me in the interim, and that looking at all that, he said, you need to be our personnel manager. What he called it, because it was before the term HR even came in. He said, you need to be our personnel manager. And I said, but we have one. He goes, have you met him? And I said, yeah. He goes, what'd you think? I said, I think he was terrible. He goes, so does everybody else. And basically, to be frank, they fired him and hired me. and I became the personnel manager for my firm based on that SWOT analysis of looking at myself and doing that self-inventory. So taking the time to step back and look at yourself, your department, your office, your brand in the area, your company, whatever level you're trying to analyze to see where you need to go, what system, whatever it might be, SWOT is a very, very powerful tool to understand where you're at that time and why. The third stage is where do you want to go? And goals are not always as easy as we think to formulate them. But, you know, we have a broad idea. We want Fletcher's to be a best practice real estate business, focusing on repeat and referral business. That's pretty big. How do you do that? How do you be best practice in everything you do? Well, we know we have to have a strong infrastructure. We have to have the right attitude. How do we work on that infrastructure? You know, I started by things like we had no database when I first got there. Our phone system in the office didn't talk to the mobiles. I brought in a new phone system. I got everybody in the office to invest in computers, and we taught everyone how to type. I got them type quick software so they could learn how to type. We then got a firm-wide database. All of a sudden, we could now communicate because we could have phones instead of somebody calling and saying, "Oh no, Steve's out. Can I give you his mobile number?" and lose the contact. We'd say, "I'll put you through to Steve's phone." All these things we take for granted now, we couldn't do before. All of a sudden, instead of one person amongst 27 salespeople who used a computer and a database, we now had all of our salespeople using computer and database. We had to teach them how to type. We had to teach them the benefits of using a database. We had to hammer them about using it over and over. We had to run so much training and get them to use it and then have stuff that they could do with their database. You got to do a lot of that. And then, but all of a sudden, you start to have that happening. So you establish your goals, and then you've got this whole issue about what gap do I have to address? And I just covered some of that. We looked at all of the suppliers. I met with all the suppliers, and I said to all of them, what are we doing better than our competitors? What are we doing worse than our competitors? Where's our opportunities to do better? What's our threats if we don't do this? And with their help, we were able to start to utilize the systems we had a lot better. I remember calling in Neo, our printers, who were New Litho at the time, and it was before Seth was there. And the magazine, Fletcher's were the first to come out with a real estate magazine in Victoria. And our website was designed by them as well. And when I got to Fletcher's, the website was just brochureware. It was terrible. And the magazine was terrible. It looked terrible. And I called in the then managing director of the printing company, and I said both those things to him. I said, I need to create a proper website, so I'm going to go and find a website company who can do it because our website's terrible. And our brochure, look at this. It looks like absolute crap. And I actually had a McGraw brochure, McGraw weekly magazine. And I said, look at theirs and look at ours. Ours looks like, a little kid did it. And he said, that's really interesting that you're saying this because number one, we've got a new managing director coming in, my nephew, Seth, who's you're gonna love, and you're right about the magazine. And all of a sudden, within a matter of, I gave them like 6 weeks, we had a brand new magazine, and within about 12 weeks or 10 weeks, we had a brand new website. Both were miles and miles ahead of where we were. And you have to involve your suppliers. And when I said that to them, basically, he got Seth in and they said, you're absolutely right. And if you don't do this, you're going to get smashed by your competitors who are also rebuilding the website, who are also going to come out with better magazine. And so you just got to talk to everybody. You got to look all around. And so for us at Fletcher's, it was about better infrastructure, better processing capability, we had a real attitudinal sort of issues to really identify and deal with. We had a firm that felt fairly beaten up. We had lost a lot of market share over the preceding few years to some really good competitors. We had to change all of these things. We had to start communicating better and running better training, getting rid of people who shouldn't be there. We had to recruit the right sort of people. We had to induct and bring them into the business better. We had to keep communicating strongly what we were doing. There were a lot of gaps to deal with, but that's what I worked through, systematically worked through them. In fact, there's a term in quality called moment of truth, which is an interaction with a client. So if you want to go to your Commonwealth Bank branch in High Street, Ashburton, you have several moments of truth about that. One, you have to be able to find a car park. You have to know the hours. When you get there and you see the building, does it look good? And when you go in, do you have to wait in a long queue? Are they very helpful? Do they do what you need them to be done? You go to the ready teller, the machine, and the ATM, and it works or it doesn't work. It's got graffiti all over it. All of those things are moments of truth. Every time you interact with a client, every time the client interacts with your business, it's a moment of truth. And I developed a spreadsheet that on Excel, when printed, was 37 pages of moments of truth that Fletcher's had in everything we did, from looking at our buildings, calling us on the phone, searching for us on the internet, sending us mail, attending our opens, everything. And I worked through 37 pages worth of moments of truth and addressed the gap, the 5 stages. This is where we're at. This is where I think we should be, and started working on a priority of fixing all of those 37 pages. From dirty carpets to gardens full of weeds, to improve phone system, improve the way we answer our phones, the way we communicate, you name it, the way we run our opens, the way we used our letterhead, the color of our logos and everything. And that's what all of this sort of gaps you're trying to attend to and deal with. And then you have to look at this, are we getting there? So there's a few different big blocks of things that help you. One is key performance indicators, KPIs, that people all hear about these days. What are the key measures? What are the key numbers that's going to help you to know if you're successful? And I developed for Fletcher's a whole set of KPIs for sales and property management on spreadsheets that enabled us to know how we're going on the whole listing side and the whole selling side, and then the whole management of property management, so we could actually look at it. The first time I did one-on-ones with salespeople, Tim Fletcher is always very excited about new things, and he sat across the hall from me where Rob sits now. And I was doing one-on-ones with salespeople. And to be frank, I had nothing except sales reports which showed the commissions that were already achieved. And I'd have one salesperson after another come and spend an hour with me, tell me about their practice. I'd ask them numbers. They'd tell me stuff that they had no idea was right or wrong. And Tim said to me, so how's it all going? And I said, well, to be frank, Tim, I don't have an effing clue, because I have no numbers. I have no KPIs. They tell me how many appraisals they're doing. I would have no idea. They tell me how many they're winning. I would have no idea. I don't know what their commissions are. I don't know what the advertising they're selling. I don't know how long it's taking them to sell properties. I don't know what their clearance rates are at auctions. I don't know anything. So I have no idea. But I'm going to develop all that. And next time I do these one-on-ones, I'm going to be able to tell them what's going on. And we did. And we've been a lot better at measurement sort of ever since. So if you don't know the numbers, if you don't have data and white data, you really don't have much. You know, I remember once, and true story, Jeremy was a young sales guy at that point, and he came into my office, and this was a year or maybe 2 years into my time at Fletcher's, and he said, I'm having real trouble listing. My numbers are way down. I'm just not listing well. I said, well, what do you mean not listing well? He goes, I'm just not getting enough listings. I said, what's that about? He goes, I don't know. I said, are you depressed? Are you, being negative? And then I said, let me have a look at my KPIs. And I opened up the KPIs I developed, and I could see that Jeremy's appraisal numbers and actual appraisals he'd done was well down in that quarter from previous quarters and well down on compared to firm average. And I said, well, last quarter you had 47 appraisals, and this quarter you've only got 23. And he just, I'm not kidding, a light bulb went on, his whole head lit up. I saw this light bulb over his head, and he said, I'm not prospecting enough. And he ran out of my office. I swear that exact exchange happened. And if I didn't have the numbers, I would have gone to work on his head. All right, Jeremy, you got to be really positive when you go into listing appointments. Let's work on your scripts. And it wasn't that at all. He just wasn't making enough calls. It had nothing to do with attitude about once he's in there. It was about not doing the work in the first place to get in there. So KPIs are really important. Key success factors are really great to understand. What are the key things that we need to do to be measuring and monitoring and be successful? What are the key success factors for a great agent? What are the key success factors for a great CFO? I'm looking at Jacqueline. What are the key success factors for a great office manager? I can see Melissa here in my screen. What's a key success factor for a real estate company? Is it where you're located? Is it the look of your office? Is it your brand? Is it the quality of the people you have? What are they? Develop a list of what are the 10 most important success factors for an agent to be successful, for an office manager to be successful, for an office to be successful. Whatever they are, come up with what your key success factors are. You better have a good handle around financial management to know that you can pay your bills, to know how profitable you are, to know what your cash flow is like, to know where your assets are. So, in summary of this whole change management, and this is a quote I use when I consult to people all the time, and that is, the people you have are the people you deserve to have. The focus that you put on your team and the people around you will determine your success, because you can't do it on your own. If you're the greatest listing principal of all time and you've got no one else around you, good luck having a holiday. Good luck having a thriving office where you're the only one who can do that. You have to invest in systems and tools which support these people, which help them to do their job and do it really well. You need to manage the players. You need to make sure you're getting rid of the people who are in the way and causing problems, and benefit the people that are there, and reward those and recognize those and treat those people with great respect. You have to have the right people. And if you have the right people, then you'll do really well. So, I'm this massive believer in the whole people side of change and of understanding culture, that you have the people you deserve to have. If you don't put effort into creating a good culture, a good office, same thing if I look at anyone and say, as an agent or as a property manager or as an office manager, you're only as good as the effort that you make. Focus you put on doing it well, the way you invest in yourself and the tools that you have, how you manage your time and what you do. It's the same thing. And a lot of people just don't focus on these things. Think about it for a minute. All of you in this group, no matter which role you're in, you work 22,080 hours a year is a 40-hour work week by basically 52 weeks. And then from the 2,080, you deduct your holidays and you end up with like 1,500 hours that you're actually working when you take away your annual leave, sick leave, and all the public holidays. For 1,500 hours a year, you're going to put into work. How many hours have you spent actually planning your year, planning to be successful, planning what you're doing, thinking about what you're doing? 1? half hour, none. You just go and do it. But you don't plan, you don't think about it, you don't prepare, you don't look at what I want to achieve, what are my goals, what's my gap, what's my strategic plan, what matters, what doesn't matter. You just go and throw labor at it every day. You don't plan out your year, you don't plan out your quarter, you don't plan out your month, excuse me, or your week or your day. You just go about doing it, just throwing labor. And if you think about it from a management point of view, and you said, well, we're not going to plan what we're going to do. We're just going to do it. We're just going to throw money at stuff and labor at stuff. You'd go, well, that's probably not a particularly good company to work for. And you'd be right. But same for you. You'll be a better employee when you plan, when you think about what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to get better and what you need to focus on and what you need to do and what those around you need to do to be better. Think about what are my KPIs? What are my key success factors? What's my office KPIs? What's my office, and you have a chance of actually succeeding. I did tell you that today I'm going to talk at you a lot. The next sessions are going to involve you talking a lot, and then we're going to get into where we're doing combined workshops through the Covey and Maxwell stuff. Before I talk about what I want you to do before Wednesday, just comments, questions, thoughts about this session before we wrap it up.
Hi, Bradley. I actually have a question, please.
Sure.
So we are actually making a very big change within our business after COVID restrictions finally lift. We can't try and test it just yet because of restrictions. So would you suggest, in terms of, the roadmap for the preparation part of things, would you suggest that, myself as the GM actually contacts the staff and sort of asks them what they might foresee as being problems that we might encounter that I might not think of in their particular roles, and then we troubleshoot how they can be resolved before the implementation part, because we've actually got the time to do that? Or should I just try and think of those problems that I think will arise, have obviously measures in place to try and counteract those, and then kind of work through the other things that might just pop up? Should I involve them ahead of time now?
Yeah, sure. I like your former approach. Yes, involve people.
Yeah.
Create a survey monkey.
Mm-hmm.
Make it specific as opposed to a random. In other words, anonymous is not going to help you. And put it out to people. What is your role? What is your job? These are the things that we're thinking about. What are your concerns about your role coming back? What do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Sarah and Beth have put together one for Canterbury for our offices. And if you want to ask them for it, you've got their email.
Great.
Happy to share with you. But yeah, nobody knows the job as well as the person who does it. Right? Nobody understands the issues as they do. So asking people achieves a number of things. One, it gets buy-in because they feel like you're listening and you care, and therefore you're seeking their opinion, and their opinion might have some influence on what happens. So they're going to feel more vested and invested in what you're doing. The flip side of that is and it's been proven again, that if you ask people and then you don't listen and you don't take up what they're saying, then you lose people a bit more. So when you ask people, you're going to get three things. You're either going to get no response, you're going to get responses that you think are worthwhile and things that you can do and want to do, or you're going to get responses that you don't think you want to do or can do, right? With regard to the second and the third options, as long as you communicate back to people, I really appreciate your feedback. We're taking these under consideration. We can't do everything at one time, but I want to let you know that you've come up with 5 things. These 3 things we're going to deal with and do right now. These 2 things we're going to put on the back burner at the moment. We don't have the grunt to do it, or we don't agree with doing it for these reasons because there's other things you don't know. People will react really well to that generally. The fact is, you've asked them, they've given you feedback. With that feedback, you're responding back to them with what you're doing and you're not doing, and you're giving them reasons why for the stuff that you're not doing.
Sure.
And that usually goes over really well.
Great. It was more the drawing their attention to making them think about the negative aspects of what might come into play. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Other questions, comments before we wrap it? Okay. On Thursday, we're going to deal with Stephen Covey. Sorry, with John Wooden and his pyramid of success. And you'll see that in the diary invite, you've got the Wooden notes and the Powell notes. And what I need you to do is look through the Wooden pyramid of success. You don't have to watch the videos, we're going to do all that, but look through the pyramid and jot down 4 or 5 of the various points in the pyramid that really strike home with you and why. You know, you're going to resonate with some more than the others. And I'm going to ask you, and next week I'm not going to accept 3 people contributing. I'm going to expect most of you to say something. And I'm going to ask, like, who identifies with number 16. And those who do, I want to understand why. And I think we'll all learn a lot by that, from understanding what resonates with people. John Wooden is the most profound coach in the history of American sports. And he's a real philosopher of people and creating good people. So we're going to spend some time on that. And I think it's unlikely we'll get to Powell. I think Wooden will take up probably our whole time, with you guys contributing with this many people in the class, and we'll fill in if we run out of time on that. But so at least do the Wooden stuff, and then before the next session, I'll get you doing the Powell stuff. But yeah, please do that. And I'll be sending out a follow-up email from this session. I'll have the video on there from today. And you've already got your diary notes for what you need for Wednesday. Any questions or comments at all before we finish? Good, worthwhile?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I think someone's using the chat. Morgan Phillips says, "Hey, Bradley." Can you see that?
I can see the chat, but, well, I did see it.
Any question from Morgan?
Hi, Morgan. Okay, anything else? Anyone want to say anything?
Nice slides.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I should say, Sarah updated all my slides for me because they were something out of the arc. And I really appreciate it. She's under the pump because the Covey stuff is very time consuming to put together. But thank you, they look great, Sarah, well done. All right, thanks everybody. See you on Wednesday.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you, Bradley.
Yeah.